Oh boy, am I excited for this one. For a professional detailer, I'm not sure there's a more exciting day than unboxing a brand new polisher. In front of me here, we have the all new Rupes HLR21, which is a battery powered Bigfoot polisher. We've all been waiting for this. So today we're going to be going through a full unboxing, talk about the specs, compare it to the Mark III LHR21, and see where this fits in the Rupes lineup, because this bad boy is not cheap, but it promises a lot of new great technology. So welcome back to another out of spec detailing video here from Clear Detailing in Northern Colorado. I'm pumped for this one. Let's jump into it. A detailer is only as good as their tools, and there is no better polishing tool than Rupes. Rupes has been a staple in the entire paint correction and polishing and sanding industry for literally years. This is an Italian company where their polishers are made in Italy, very much handcrafted, but they're built to last. They're built for durability, high performance, and unbelievable finishing on vehicles' paints like my Model 3 Performance behind me. So I am super pumped for their brand new battery powered big boy Bigfoot machine. Now, for the past 10 years have been exclusively using Rupes polishers. I've grabbed Flex, I've grabbed some other machines in the industry, and I've never felt quite at home with them. Now, we've seen forced rotation machines, which have their own benefits compared to a random orbital DA like the Rupes here, but in my personal opinion, there has been nothing better. This kit in front of me here, I purchased with my own money, so this review is not forced upon me by Rupes. I just wanted to bring you guys along, show you my thoughts and opinions and feelings during the unboxing experience of this new machine, and just tell you, I think this thing is going to be awesome. So first off, let's touch on the big deal with this. It is no longer a corded machine. It is completely battery powered. Now over here, I have been using the HLR75 for quite a few months now. This is a 3-inch pad, essentially backing plate on here, and it is completely battery powered. I have fallen in love with this machine. Long gone are the days of me throwing a cord over my back and polishing out cars for hours and hours. These machines get put to the test. An average day for me here, I'm between 6 to 10 hours on a machine, just sitting there grinding, doing paint corrections. So these things need to hold up. The ergonomics need to be great. And the lack of cords is one thing that is truly awesome. I think I literally half the time am untangling cords and dealing with where the cord's going and worrying about smacking it to the body. So I'm so glad Rupes finally went this route, jumping into the market with this. Now let's quickly talk about the specs of this machine. Now over here, I have my old LHR Mark III, which is a 21 millimeter. This machine has been through it. I quite literally have thousands of hours on this thing. You can see how beat up it is, but it finally it died. There's no better way to say it than it died. Now, I go through machines probably every 3 years, I would say, maybe even quite a bit longer than that, but you got to realize when I'm doing paint correction after paint correction, this time adds up on these machines. And my personal opinion, instead of just fixing motors and Frankensteining something together, I would rather just get a new machine. This gave me an excuse too. So let's talk about pricing, because this is one of the most shocking things about this, hence battery powered, pun intended there. This bad boy for the 21 millimeter version retails at $760. This guy over here, the corded version, is $490. So you are definitely paying a steep premium for it. Now this is not just a Mark III with batteries in it. This is whole new technologies. The motors sound completely different. The power is very different. The whole machine is a ground up design, which I think is awesome. A lot of times you'll see companies basically take the old machine, yank the cord out of it, toss a battery pack on it. The problem with that is your machine weights all over the place. Now, Rupes has gone in and optimized how this machine feels because it's a little bit lighter now. And also you have this huge battery hanging off the back of it, which changes the center of gravity of the machine. Now, if you're interested in the 15mm version, that retails for $735. Now, there's always a difference of opinion between 21s and 15s. Now, I was actually of the opinion that I really much preferred the 15s for years and years. And finally, I got a Mark III and fell in love with the machine. I just love how much more paint I can cut so much more quickly. Detailing is about money, and your time, if you're taking longer on vehicles, you're making less money. So this, as a professional detailer, having a bigger machine is great. Now, that being said, I also have 15mm versions of these. I also have 12mm in the Duettos. I use all different machines for different purposes. Of course, that's one of the big things going into being a professional detailer. You need to have a wide span of tools. You're not going to take this and do an entire car and get into little intricate areas. You're going to need something like a 3-inch or maybe even down to a 1-inch, depending on how crazy you're going. But I think it's important to know that. So a few things with this machine here I want to touch on. This 21mm throw, of course, has a 6-inch backing plate on it. Now, let's talk about batteries. We'll get into unboxing all of this. The battery life is 40 minutes, which you're going to originally walk into this and go, ooh, that doesn't seem like a long time. I'm thinking about this for myself, spending 8 hours doing a paint correction. Oh my gosh, how many batteries am I going to go through? Well, this comes with 2 batteries. Now, the recharge cycle on these is 50 to 55 minutes. And you may be thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, well, I'm going to be waiting for another battery. I'm going to, have to stop working. Not the case at all. That is 40 minutes continuous run time on here. So if you just sit there with the trigger on the entire time, we all know as professional detailers, that's not reality. You do a 2x2 section, maybe whatever, a quarter of a hood, half a hood, whatever you're doing in that situation. You set the machine down, turn it off, go grab your towels, inspect it. This all time adds up. So Rupes has thought about this. Now, this is also going to save the batteries for future use. I'm a big EV nerd, and charging batteries very, very quickly can also cause, some degradation over time. I'm assuming these batteries are quite expensive. I've not seen specs on these, so having a reasonable charging time seems like a good option to me. Now, the weight, we are down a little bit. The new machine is 4.3 pounds, which does seem quite good. Now, one thing that is a little concerning to me as I looked up the specs of this, the new machine is a 350 watt motor. This bad boy over here is a 500 watt motor. So that to me is a little bit of concern in saying, okay, we're buying a machine that should be not necessarily replacing, but a different variant of it that does have less power. Now, in reality, are you running this thing at full power? Hardly ever. Typically, we're around, if you look on the speed dial here, around 4, maybe 4.5, 5, and really, really never going to level 6. So I'm curious to see how this works out. Are we going to have to run this machine maybe at full power at 6? We'll get testing that over the next coming weeks. This is really down to unboxing. But I gotta say, I'm super pumped with this. The 75 over here, the 3-inch backing plate, this thing has been an absolute workhorse. Now, I actually have 2 of these, and I broke one of them. So the only thing about this machine, I know this is not a review on this, but that concerns me is these still are heavy machines. This being 4 pounds, give or take. If you drop this on the ground, you can start breaking stuff. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, why does it matter if you drop it? Well, things happen. When you're working for 8-10 hours a day, a machine falls off a table that you're working on, stuff happens. They get kicked over sometimes. Realistically, it happens. Where I actually snapped mine here was this small area. Now, I don't foresee that being an issue on the new 21mm over here. Seems very robust, very, very beefy. So before further ado, let's jump into what's in the box, what comes with it, because as of right now, you can only buy these as kits. So if you're a little concerned on the price point of these, understand that you are paying for pads, you're paying for polishes, you're paying for the battery charger. One thing that is not coming with this as of yet, which is quite funny, is with the other Rupes hybrid machines over here, you basically can have a pack that goes into the back of the machine and then you can plug it in. In my eyes, you're not going to need that. If you do, just use one of these. You're not going to run out of battery power with this. This thing is going to keep you working for hours and hours and hours. Just make sure you keep your battery charged. That's the biggest thing with this. If your batteries aren't charged, that comes down to you. That is all user error, not Rupes' fault. So let's get this unboxed and see what's inside. And here is the kit here. I gotta say, presentation-wise, when you open this up, very, very nice. We have all types of different pads over here. We've got some compounds and polishes. We've got 2 battery packs, and as I can see here, the battery charger. And of course, what you're really paying for here, the machine. So let's originally just start with this. So let's open this bad boy up and see what we think here. So opening up here, immediately noticing we have all our registration stuff on here, a little quick guide of what we actually, how to use the machine, your serial number on here. Interesting to note here, the Allen key for basically the backing plate is maybe not attached to the head of the machine like traditional times. So let me get this out of here. Wowee, look at this thing right here. Holy smokes. Wow, feels very, very compact to me so far as I can already tell. Definitely looks a little bit smaller, but we have some interesting things going on here that I'm noticing right away. First off, this strip. Now I've seen, of course, reviews of this. This has a blue LED light, battery indicator, pressure indicator if you overload the machine. Seems to be an interesting feature. It looks cool, most people say. I don't know, I kind of think this is a little bit gimmicky, not necessarily sure I'm completely sold on that, but okay, that looks interesting. Second off here, carbon fiber. I'm not a big fan of fake carbon fiber. This to me looks a little cheesy, a little chintzy. It's been in the Bigfoot lineup for years. Okay, sure. I'm not a big fan of this. I don't really care how my machines look. I mean, this is all kind of a matte black look. Grips here are very, very different. So very large trigger pull here, of course, with kind of a serrated grip. We've got very different underbody characteristics here with some ventilation. Very, very cool. Up here, an all new rubberized top. Long gone are the days of all plastic housing on these. So I think this is nice, a nice serrated. This feels really, really nice. You can also see we have these 2 little bumpers here. Essentially, when you toss the machine on its back to keep it from falling over, those keep it from rocking around too much and really actually helps out keeping this area where typically you're going to be holding this from getting a ton of abuse. New rubberized handles up here. I'm very glad they went with all black instead of white. As you guys may have seen from my other machine, those get quite nasty. Let's peel this off. Wow, very different backing plate here. Very, very different. So immediately noticing, of course, look how thin this is. Not sure how I feel about that. Now, one of my big concerns with this machine is when you stick the battery in it, how low the battery sits here. So that could be of concern about smacking the battery pack against a panel on your vehicle that you're polishing. That seems a little interesting. I'm also noticing in here, we have a new kind of rubberized backing plate. I'm assuming with this that this is not going to do as much damage as the previous ones that were kind of like a composite foam and a little bit harder on the edges. Even if you notice here, the Velcro does not go all the way to the corner. One thing I find a little strange is the Allen key here, hopefully you guys can see that, protrudes out from the backing plate a little bit. So that's a little interesting there. Now, one thing that I am concerned about is how are the edges going to work with this machine? You basically, I don't know, have a 1/4 of an inch there that is not being held on by Velcro. Now, from what I understand, Rupes had to make this thin in order to make this machine feel vibration free. Now, vibrations are actually quite a big thing when we're polishing all day. If you have a machine that's very, very cheap, you'll understand what I mean. The whole body of the frame vibrates. Your fingers, your hands are tingling by the end of the day. It's very, very important to have a machine that's smooth and easy to use, very ergonomic, and not so hard on your hands. So, some interesting things going on there. Now, Rupes. This is one of my biggest complaints about your machines. This seems weird to me. Now, let me explain. So basically this shroud around here, as you can see it, has some rubber on essentially what is plastic. Now, as you may be able to tell on here, it's greased up. Now, professional detailers, what you'll see do 9 times out of 10 is essentially slice this entire shield off of here so that this rotates more. You can see I spin it and it stops. Now, Kevin Brown, of course, if you guys are in the detailing industry, know that he basically has a spacer that goes in between here to essentially void that shroud, so you have a more free spinning pad on here. Typically what I do, take a razor blade, cut that off, because what happens here, essentially as this grease wears out, you get compound in there, it gets dried out, this starts folding over on itself. And then essentially you have these rubber particles flinging all over the car. It's an absolute nightmare. So I'm surprised they didn't fix that with this machine. I know there's probably a rationale from Rupes behind that, but anytime you see a professional detailer with a polishing tool like this, 9 times out of 10, they're gonna have this spaced out or have that shroud cut off of it. I can tell you every single one of my machines, that bad boy comes off right away. So, overall, it does feel very nose heavy right now. Of course, I think that'll change once we get one of the battery packs in it. Speaking of battery packs, let's come in here and pop one of these open. Now, these are, of course, lithium ion batteries, and they are, as we get this open here, they are, of course, rechargeable. 90 watt hours on here, 5 amps, and of course, 18 volt. Not super heavy, in all honesty. Back here, we have a little power indicator of how much power we have. One thing that I am blown away with Rupes battery-powered machines is they perform all the way to 0, right till they're dead. This is not a machine to where when they're at 100%, you get full power and then it slowly degrades. You get it until the last moment. Now, I will tell you from experience with the 3-inch machine that you do, right at the last 30 seconds, you can feel the machine starting to die. It's right on the edge. Now, this has a battery indicator on here with this blue light, as I talked about earlier, that will start pulsing. Now, there's been some confusion in the industry with people who have reviewed this particular unit of whether it's a slow blink or a fast blink. Some machines have been different. I believe it's supposed to be a slow blink when your battery is about to die and a fast blink when you're overloading the machine. So take that with what you will. Let's slide this cover off here and get the battery put into this. Now, first off, it feels very stiff, but that went in quite easy. Wow, very different machine there. Holy smokes. Now here's what I'm talking about though. I don't know if you can tell this, but I have about a finger's width here at the back of the battery pad. That's a little concerning. Now, I am one of those guys who typically does not use Rupes wool cutting pads. I am a Meguiar's microfiber cutting pad guy, which are quite thin. We'll get one put on here before the end of the video and see how it kind of feels. I'm very curious to see how this machine interfaces with other pads, Lake Country, Meguiar's, whatever it may be. Now, a lot of the times, of course, Rupes designs their pads to be specifically used with their machines. I've had a lot of different pads throughout the years using Rupes machines that really don't work. They really feel weird. The machine starts to kind of just move wherever the heck it wants to. So that's a little concern of mine. I kind of bit the bullet and said, we're gonna spend $760 on this machine, not knowing if it's gonna interface with my preferred microfiber cutting pads. So far, very cool. Let's start this guy up and see how it sounds. Whoa, totally different motor sound. Now on here, this is completely changed. So before you could only, or basically you just press this and it would start the motor. Now you have to press it Huh, okay, so that's gonna take some time to getting used to. So you press it again. Huh, I am having trouble getting it to stay. So let's try this one more time. There it goes. So just a little bit heavier of a press there. I think that's gonna take some time for getting used to. I think this is an interesting way they did this. Now I completely understand why, because on the HLR75s, the triggers they designed were absolute crap, to be perfectly honest with you. Essentially the trigger, you just press it, now you're slinging compound and polish everywhere, but I have never once had that issue on the Bigfoot machine. Let me grab this guy over here and show you what I mean. So this machine right here, on and off immediately. Now they made a new trigger lock for these that does help with that. So that's, okay, a little bit interesting to say the least. But yeah, that's gonna take some time to get used to. Wow, what a nice sounding machine. Now, if you're a professional detailer, you know the sounds of a typical Bigfoot polisher. This is completely different. One thing that I do need to touch on with this machine, completely brushless now, which is fantastic. Very, very excited to hear that and very anxious to get testing on this. So let's dive into the rest of the pack here and see what else comes with it. So I've placed the machine over here, and one thing that I did not mention is that the bottom of the battery is actually rubberized, so that'll be interesting. I think that'll help, of course, being rubberized instead of plastic if you do accidentally hit this. Again, that is just a concern of mine, how that machine sits. That'll be interesting to test out. Of course, here we have another battery pack, so you'll have one in the machine while you're working, and you'll have one charging up. Now, talking about chargers, this is quite cool. And as I can tell from this box, holy smokes, this bad boy is beefy. Now, I need to figure out how to open it here. Boom, here we go. Okay, very cool. So of course we have a power cable here, a little instruction manual. I'm going to set this off to the side. So beefy charger here. Now, of course, we have temperature indicator here. We have if it's charging, if the battery's damaged. Very, very cool there. So I just want to see how these kind of sit on here as we open up our second battery pack. Slide that off. So it comes in from the back. Okay. Wow, that clips in very, very nice there. Pretty awesome. Yeah, I've heard some reviews that the batteries are pretty stiff. I actually personally don't think it's any sort of an issue. Now, the really cool thing about this charger, this is a smart charger. So essentially, if you have two batteries plugged in here, it's going to take the one with the highest voltage, i.e. the one with the most state of charge in it, and it's going to charge that one first. So it's going to give full power to that one before it charges the one that is low, so that you are ready to have a battery ready to go. Great, that's awesome. I think this looks good. The battery ports or the cable plugs in back here. Great. This of course plugs into a 120 outlet. If you're in Europe, I'm assuming they sell that as well. Now this is interesting. Down here we have this little guy that says battery pack on it. What exactly is in here? Nothing. Okay. That's a little misleading. I think it's just because they sit on top of there. Okay, very cool. So let's get into what actually comes with the kit now. Of course, you get your two batteries, the charger, and you get some polishes and compounds here. Now, I will tell you, out of these two, I never use DA course from Rupes. I know Rupes has been in the polishing and paint correction industry forever. I've never really loved a lot of their compounds. Now polishes, on the other hand, I very much do like. This is one that I'll grab quite often, so this is DA Fine. They also have some underneath this that are a white labeled bottle that are a lot more fine. But this is a great go-to. Now, of course, with compounds and polishes, you need pads, don't we? So let's jump in here and see what we have. Now these look quite interesting. So new eco-friendly packaging here. We have a wool polishing pad. Okay, let me tear this open. Oh wow, very different. Very, very different. Huh, okay, so we have a little bit thicker than I remember using on the wool pads. Now it's interesting they call this a polishing pad. The blue is of course a cutting pad here. That can be a little confusing, I would say, for first-time users. Now again, I've never been a huge fan of wool. I know a lot of guys love it. I'm a microfiber guy, so that's my personal opinion. But it's interesting, it's a flat edge there. So that'll be interesting to see how this works with the machine. Over here, again, we've got another wool polishing pad. So 2 of these bad boys here. We have a medium polishing pad here. A lot of guys absolutely love these. So as you can see, this is a completely different wool here. Now, the biggest reason I don't love wool is because it makes an absolute mess. The wool just basically shoots out everywhere all over the car. Not a huge fan of that, but again, noticing a lot thicker, denser foam here. Now, the thickness of this translates heat very differently into the panel and into your pads. So interesting to see that they've actually changed these. So I'm curious if you're gonna have to start buying specific pads for these from Rupes. Of course, here we have another yellow wool polishing pad. Now, we have something totally new. I have never ever once used these pads. These are the new intermediate pads and they are with a teal blue. This is a cut and finishing polishing pad. So it's going to be somewhat in between a yellow pad and more of a compound pad. I'll be interested to see where this kind of fits into my lineup of use. So that'll be quite interesting. I want to tear one of these open. Very cool color on here, I will say. So this is really what I kind of expected to see more out of the wool polishing pads. They've always had this kind of flare out here, as you can see on the backing plate. The backing plate's smaller than the actual pad. So 6-inch backing plate, but actual 7-inch pad, and a lot more thick there, as you can see. Now this is a nice dense foam. I'll be curious to put this up against something like the Lake Country HDO Blues. That'll be really interesting, but very cool looking pad there. I'll be anxious to test that out. Of course, you get 2 of those. Now we of course have 2 of the fine polishing pads. This I'm not going to open. I can feel it's exactly the same as our previous one, so that feels quite good. And what is this here? Okay, just a microfiber towel. So let's tear this open. Do you really only get 1 microfiber? Yes. Okay. That's one of those like, just throw something else in there to fill the box type of deals. Not really super into this towel. Okay. A nice edges on it though. You have 2 different piles on here. I think that's okay. Completely fine. That's fine. I don't think this needed to come with the kit. Weird, like you're not even going to do an entire car with 1 towel. So, okay, maybe they're trying to sell you on towels for the future time of, hey, you use this, you absolutely love it. Let's go pick up some more from Rupes. So I got to say, this kit's very, very nice. I'm not sure, of course, that you're going to need all of this stuff. Like as a professional detailer, of course, you buy this. So when you're purchasing the kit, you're paying for all this. Yeah, I mean, maybe wait until you can buy only the machine or without the pads and polishes here. I believe this to be probably around $100 to $150 worth of, you know, trial size compounds and polishes and some polishing pads. It's nice that it comes with it, especially this. I would probably never pick this up, but I'm excited to try it. Nice dense foam there. I'll definitely test out the wool pads on here. So I'm very anxious to try this. Let me gather some thoughts here and let's test out some different pads on this machine. And let me talk to you about one of the main issues that I see with this. So now that we've unboxed this, again, I want to come back to one of my main concerns, and that is basically how far down this battery pack sits. Now on here, I have a Meguiar's microfiber cutting pad. This is my absolute every single time go-to cutting disc. I rarely, like I said, go to wool. I don't necessarily use foam pads for cutting all that often, here or there, maybe once or twice a year, depending on the vehicle. But this is of concern. Again, as you notice how thin this is, I'm wondering with the new pads they designed for this machine or that came with it, if that's not why they had to make the foam a little bit thicker. Now, again, the thinner the foam translates heat very differently into the machine. Now, one thing that I am noticing on here, again, that I talked about, is that you don't have Velcro all the way to the edge. Now, that also does help removing pads. Boom, ready to go. Velcro feels very, very different. But again, my main concern, if you just notice how these machines sit with this one having a pad on it, look how much space is under here versus this. So essentially, what I'm concerned about is back here. Look at the amount of room I have from the end of the machine to the table, and this doesn't have a pad on it. Now this one, completely balanced, I can barely fit fingers in there. So that's definitely concerning. Now the issue with this, like my Model 3 behind me here, we have some recessed areas. So if you're trying to get into those, you're gonna be smacking that on the panel. So I think you're gonna have to kind of adjust and play with this. Now there's gonna be some differences with this machine as I talked about. This machine is more weighted towards the middle. Now these older machines, I say older, this is the Mark III, all the weight's up front, right? So you have all of the weight here in the head of it, so it's very nose heavy. Now one thing I do love about this, especially if you're having to do kind of a long reach situation, it's more towards the middle, it's evenly balanced throughout the machine, so I do think that's very, very cool. Now let's talk about size-wise on these. So this is pretty much the traditional standard. Let me throw this up on here. Not all that much different. Actually, it's slightly smaller if you consider basically the tip of where the cable comes out of it, but honestly, not bad at all. What is very different though is the length of the main body, this particular area, because of course you have to have a battery back here. So your hand naturally feels like it's closer up here. And originally picking this up, I want to have my hand back here. And that's funny because a lot of guys I've been seeing using this, they kind of hold it back here by the battery, even kind of one of these situations. Of course, I'm very different being a one-handed professional detailer. So I'm gonna very much have to get used to this, but I definitely feel like having all the weight right in the middle is gonna help with this banging, but I'm definitely concerned about it. Now, trigger, I much prefer this. That's really how it should be. Now I want you to notice here, look how long this bad boy spins for. Spinning, keeps spinning, keeps spinning. Still going and stopped. So of course that has to do with the shroud in here and having now a free spinning backing plate. I will 100% be doing that with this. Now this machine is noisy. Now when I'm working here at the shop, AirPods are always in. These machines are loud. They definitely wear on you. What I love about this, totally new sound. It's nice. That's speed 4, 5. That's full power right there. Wow, this sounds very, very futuristic, I would say, towards a more mechanical sound of the Rupes. Every time I watch another detailer do a video, the sound of this just kind of gets you, sometimes in a good way and sometimes of like, it's like kind of nails on the chalkboard sometimes. These are very loud machines. This is very quiet, a very much new integrated sound into here. Of course, the big deal with this is not just a redesigned slap on a battery pack Mark III like the LHR over here. It is fully new design. Brushless motors in here. You're no longer having to change the carbon brushes, which is fantastic. I believe something within this has failed. That's why it's starting to essentially, this machine still works, but it has power surges with it, and that has to do with the brushes. From what I'm assuming, I've changed them out multiple times. This has probably been through 4 or 5 sets of brushes. This, I'm never gonna have to tear this bad boy apart, so I really, really like that. Again, the shroud on here, to me, I don't love this. I'm not sure why Rupes does this and why they want to limit this spin. When you see, gosh, 99% of the professional detailers throw a washer in it, cut that shroud off, and have a free spinning machine. There's some rationale behind that. I get it. Now, again, This is just a concern to me. That really freaks me out. So we'll see how this goes. I may have to get a larger backing plate and use the older ones on this machine. And I know the Rupes engineers are going, oh my gosh, this is gonna be terrible. The machine's gonna wobble all over the place. I'll play around with some combinations. I'm rarely ever like, this is the way to go. As you can see, I literally cut a $500 machine shroud off the day I got it, which I'll be doing later this afternoon with this. But this tool, man, it feels nice. I really, in all honesty, don't love the lights here. I first off can barely see them in here. Yeah, can't even see them. I thought they'd be a lot brighter. The other interesting thing is they protrude from the sides, so you kind of have, what they've done with this is essentially made it like a little bit grippy, which I kind of do like, especially if you're holding it maybe here and here. I don't know, but it definitely is going to take some time to get used to. The trigger, I'm not in love with. It'll take some time, of course. Anytime you get a new machine, they feel different. You get to the point with these machines after hours and hours and hours on them that you know when they're stalling. So I cannot wait to test this. Now, we're not going to be polishing any cars today. I have a vehicle coming up this weekend that I'm going to be doing a full paint correction, full polish on. I'm going to be putting this bad boy to the test, and fingers crossed I didn't waste $760 on this machine and just picked up another one of these. And Rupes says, stay tuned for a Mark IV. This is not replacing the Mark IV and just has no cord on it. So I'll be curious to see what they come out with next. What do you guys think about the new machine? Are you excited about it? How do you feel about the battery power? Personally, having used the other hybrid machines, batteries are not an issue as long as you are plugging them in right after they come out of the machine. Now, I'm curious to see, you did see that battery temperature meter on there. If you take these immediately out of a very, very long hammering compound or polishing session, are the batteries going to overheat, sit there, they got to cool down before they can charge? This is all going to play into it. You know, again, if you're going 8-10 hours a day, you're just snapping batteries in and out. Are they going to heat up too much where they won't accept a charge, and then you're left without any battery power? That could be of concern. So I'll definitely let you know in an updated video. You'll see this not on its own dedicated review. I'm probably going to give it, I don't know, 3-4 months or so, really get to learn this machine and see if I absolutely love it or if I absolutely hate it. But I'm curious to see what you guys think of the new HLR21 or 15, which this is not. Leave your comments below. If you have any questions for me, leave them down there as well. But we'll see you in another out of spec detailing video very, very soon. Bye-bye.